Unfortunately, Pokemon in their own way have basically confirmed that Vaporeon is indeed the most breedable Pokemon, because it canonically ends up getting with the closest thing possible to a human. Here are 300 facts on the Eeveelutions. The term Eeveelutions isn't just a fan-made term. While it started off as a fan-made term that everyone loved, it was made official after its use in the strategy guide for Pokemon Stadium 2, followed by a TCG theme deck. This theme deck was straight up called Eeveelution. It was from the Skyward set, and it utilized Eevee, the Cancer Eeveelutions, and a bunch of other fire, water, and electric type Pokemon to make it work. I'm pretty sure the deck sucked though. In terms of other Pokemon media, the term Eeveelutions was also used in Murphy's Pokemon Ranger contest in Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia. It was also used in the Evolving Skies commercial, which, by the way, that's the best Eevee TCG set so far. However, by the time this video comes out, Prismatic Evolutions should be out, so you gotta let me know which one's better. The 31st chapter of the Pokemon Magical Journey manga was called Eeveelution, referring to one of the characters in that series, Lou the Eevee, and in general the term Eeveelutions is used now by official social media accounts. However, that isn't the only official term for Eevee and its evolutions. There's one more term that we'll have to take a look at much later in the video, and I don't think it's one that you guys will guess. Before we take a look at that name, let's look at Eevee's name, because Eevee wasn't always known as Eevee. In the early English promotional material, Eevee was known as Eon, which later became the suffix of all the Eeveelutions. Eon also became the Pokédex description and the legendary name of Latios and Latios, as they're now known as the Eon Pokemon in the Pokédex, and they're known as the Eon Duo, so it would have made things complicated if Eevee stuck to that name. Vaporeon is the only evolution that doesn't share any weakness with another evolution, as it's a pure water type. It's only weak to electric and grass, and those two typings only hit the quote-unquote physical types for super effective damage outside of water. If you use a Thunderstone to evolve a paralyzed Eevee into Jolteon, the paralysis won't be removed. Now you may be thinking, of course it won't be removed, but it's a bit strange, only because from Gen 6 onwards, electric types could no longer be paralyzed, meaning that this is one of the few ways that you can legitimately have a paralyzed electric type Pokemon. Might even be the only way outside of changing a Pokemon's type. You're gonna have to let me know in the comments down below. Flareon is the only evolution to be super effective against two different evolutions, that being Leafeon and Glaceon, the two Sinnoh evolutions. But that was also when the physical special split happened and Flareon got nerfed to oblivion, so was it really a W? Espeon is the only evolution to not have a type advantage over another evolution. Psychic is only super effective against poison and fighting, so it's only happening if and when we get a poison or fire type evolution. To parallel Espeon, Umbreon also got the synchronized ability. However, Umbreon is the only non-psychic type Pokemon to have this ability. And when you think about it, apart from it paralleling Espeon, the ability really doesn't make sense for a dark type Pokemon like Umbreon. Leafeon and Glaceon are the only evolutions to not be seen evolving from Eevee on screen in the anime. The other 5 evolutions prior all got the limelight in many episodes, and Sylveon got it with Serena, but when it came to Sinnoh, it was just quick appearances with May's Glaceon and Zoe's Leafeon. No actual evolution shown as such. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it was impossible to get Glaceon or Leafeon by evolving Eevee, because you couldn't evolve it into either Sinnoh forms here since there was no Moss Rock or Ice Rock. You instead had to get one of these evolved forms of Eevee through the Sinnoh games and bring it over. Poor optimization, I know. According to Junichi Masuda, Sylveon was the first fairy-type Pokemon to be created in-game, which honestly isn't surprising at all. It pretty much is the staple fairy-type Pokemon. Did you know there's an official Eevee Day? Eevee Day has been celebrated since 2018 on November 21st, which is 11/21. This is because the date is Gorowase, or Japanese wordplay for Eevee, Eevee's Japanese name. This day is so official that it's actually certified by the Japanese Anniversary Association. Now, we just need the whole world to make Pokemon Day a national holiday. In Pokemon Masters EX, they even had an entire event on Eevee Day to celebrate it called Eevee Tales. Actually, it was first known as 3 Eevee Tales, but from the second round onwards, it was just known as Eevee Tales. The event, of course, focused on sync pairs formed between playable characters and their evolutions. The first 3 pairs shown off were Lyra with Vaporeon, Chris with Jolteon, and Lucas with Flareon. The second iteration of this event had Elio with Espeon, and then Celine with Umbreon. And for the third one of this event, we were introduced to Hilbert with Glaceon, Hilda with Leafeon, and Calum with Sylveon. The big fight at the end of the event is a fight between 9 trainers and all 9 members of the Eevee family, and includes Signasuit Misty with Vaporeon, Flint with Flareon, Volkner with Jolteon, who are not a pair outside this event, Valerie with Sylveon, of course, Signasuit Erica with Leafeon, Sabrina with Espeon, Candace with Glaceon, Karen with Umbreon, and Leaf, surprisingly, with Eevee. In terms of other evolution pairings, Adamant has pairings with both Vaporeon and Leafeon, while Irida has pairings with both Flareon and Glaceon. Dexio is paired with Espeon, and Cena is again paired with Glaceon. I think Pokemon Masters had a favorite here. Can't be an Eeveelutions pairing without Penny and Sylveon, and then two Pokemon Masters exclusive characters, Rachel and Tina, have evolution pairs, as Rachel is paired with Umbreon, and Tina is paired with Flareon. And finally for Eevee, you have Pokekid Eve, and you have Elaine as well. Despite Eevee being obtainable before the Pokemon League and Leafeon and Glaceon being included in the Unova Regional Pokedex in Black 2 and White 2, it cannot evolve into them until after entering the Hall of Fame. This is because Twist Mountain and Pinwheel Forest are inaccessible before then. In Pokemon Coliseum, Vaporeon possesses a snow-like visual effect surrounding its body in battle. No other Pokemon in the series has this effect, and the best part? No one knows why it has a snow-like effect in the first place. Vaporeon is the only water-type Pokemon that appears in the field section of Pal Park. In Pokemon Yellow, Vaporeon is programmed to learn both Haze and Mist at level 42. However, a bug prevents a Pokemon from learning more than one move at the same level when leveled up outside of the Pokemon Daycare, so Vaporeon can only learn Mist if it reaches level 42 in the Pokemon Daycare. In English, the category Lightning Pokemon is shared by Jolteon and Electrike. In Japanese, Jolteon has the category Kaminari Pokemon, while Electric has the category Inazuma Pokemon. Jolteon's and Zapdos' Japanese names are almost exactly identical, with the final that kanji being the only difference. I don't know what it's called. In English, the category Flame Pokemon is shared by Charmeleon, Charizard, Flareon, Cantonian Moltres, and Infernape. In Japanese, Flareon has the category Hono Pokemon, while the other four Pokemon share the category Kane Pokemon. I mispronounced that. They're both flame, but two different versions of saying flame. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Flareon is the only evolution that is not able to swim, so it stands on a platform when sent out to battle above water. Prior to the Scarlet and Violet version 2.0.1 update, Flareon was unable to learn Flame Charge via TM. Espeon shares this category with Sunflora and Volcarona. They're all known as the Sun Pokemon. If one were to rearrange the Pokerap Gold and Silver so all the Pokemon in the National Pokedex are in order, Espeon and Remoraid will remain in their respective positions in the song. I still don't know any part of the rap by heart, so I'm not even going to try to attempt this one. Charmeleon, Wartortle, Aerodactyl. This is the only part I know. I even know that. Please forgive me. Beta Espeon was yellow. Yeah, that's all. It was yellow. It was, some Pokemon makes sense. Espeon has blue inner ears in the games, but in the animated series, they're often purple. Due to the absence of a day and night cycle in Fire and Leaf Green, in order for an Espeon or Umbreon to be obtained and added to the Pokedex in those games, an Eevee must be traded to Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, evolved there, and then traded back. Or else, the other option is to have it traded from Pokemon Coliseum or XD Gale of Darkness. Now I know Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald doesn't have a visual clock, like you don't see the time change from day to night, but you do have that clock in your room, and that will determine whether you get Espeon or Umbreon. In the Pokemon of the Year poll held by the Pokemon Company in 2020, Umbreon was voted as both the most popular Gen 2 Pokemon and the most popular evolution, receiving a whopping 67,062 votes. It was also voted as the 5th most popular Pokemon overall. Prior to 2023, the official romanization of Umbreon's Japanese name was Blackie. The new official romanization is Bracky, which was trademarked on December 19th, 2022. Obviously, this name was changed for very obvious reasons. I don't think there was any ill intent with that name. We of course have Boober the Magmar. That's not there for any kind of other intent either, just a name. So yeah, but they had to play it safe. It's 2024, 2025, 2025. In Generation 9, prior to the version 2.0.1 update of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Umbreon was unable to learn Mud Slap via TM, while its pre-evolution and all the other evolutions could. In the Pokemon Gold and Silver, the Golden Boys manga, Black's Umbreon does not have the signature yellow rings on its limbs. Beta Umbreon was a poison-type Pokemon. I guess this was the parallel to Espeon, since Espeon could only be super effective against poison or fighting-type Pokemon, but they flipped it so that Umbreon is super effective against Espeon, and now Espeon isn't super effective against anything, while Beta Umbreon would have been super effective against Leafeon. Oh well. Speaking of poison-type Umbreon, several of Umbreon's Pokédex entries refer to Poisonous Sweat, which may be a holdover from the 1997 Space World demo of Gold and Silver, where it again was a poison-type Pokemon. Umbreon is the only evolution to have a unique type combination in its debut generation. Yeah, apparently Pure Dark was a unique type combination at that time. Go figure. It's also the only evolution to be immune to another evolution type, Espeon. According to the Diamond and Pearl Pokedex, Leafeon, Glaceon, and Umbreon have identical footprints. Beta Leafeon was gonna be in Gen 2, and while it is pretty cool, the Leafeon that we have now is way better. Glacion's Japanese name is the same as the English name of Glacia, a member of the Hoenn Elite Four. According to the Pokemon Diamond Pearl Beta and the data files of Pokemon Battle Revolution, Glacion's development name was Isa, which is derived from ice. Get it? Isa? Ice? Glaceon shares its category with Vanillite. They're both known as the fresh snow Pokemon. In Generation 9, prior to the version 2.0.1 update of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Glaceon was unable to learn Trail Blaze via TM, while its pre-evolution and all the other evolutions could. Sylveon is the only Pokemon introduced after Generation 4 that is obtainable in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. It's also the only evolution to be introduced in a generation that did not introduce any other evolutions. On top of this, it's the only evolution to not evolve by using an item in any games, as Leafeon and Glaceon can evolve by using a Leaf Stone and Ice Stone respectively in Generation 8 onwards, while Espeon and Umbreon evolve using a Sun Shard or a Moon Shard respectively in Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, yes, prior to the version 2.0.1 update, Sylveon was also unable to learn Mudslap via TM despite Eevee being able to. Guess it's just that fabulous that it doesn't want to get dirty. The Eeveelutions are the only evolutionary line with more than 5 species. They're obviously the line with the most amount of members, but they've been the line with the most amount of members every generation, starting with 4 in Generation 1 up till 9 now in Generation 9. In between, of course, it was 6 in Generation 2 and 3, and then 8 in Generation 4 and 5. They're the first branched evolution line ever, as in Generation 1, they were the only branched evolutionary line. I know that doesn't look right because Poliwag and all these Pokemon exist, but they only came out in Generation 2 and afterwards. The Eevee line is the only evolutionary line to have a new member in Generation 6. The Eeveelution line is also the only branched evolutionary line to include Friendship Evolution and Location-based Evolution. All evolutions initially evolved using a method that was introduced in their respective generations. Stone evolutions in Generation 1, Day and Nighttime evolutions in Generation 2, Location-based evolutions in Generation 4, and an Affection-based evolution in Generation 6. Thankfully, the 3 most tedious evolution methods of Leafeon, Glaceon, and Sylveon were changed in Generation 8, as now Leafeon and Glaceon just evolve via the Leaf and Ice Stones. And instead of Eevee evolving into Sylveon, knowing a Fairy-type move and 2 stages of Affection, now it just evolves knowing a Fairy-type move and leveling up with a high amount of Friendship, just like Espeon and Umbreon. When Leafeon and Glaceon did have location-based evolutions, there was a chance for you to trigger 3 different evolutions at once. For example, if you were by a Moss or Ice Rock and your Eevee had a Fairy-type move with high Affection and you leveled up with high Friendship at some point in the day or night, you're technically triggering 3 different evolutions at once. But your Eevee will only evolve into one of these evolutions, so how does it choose? Well, there's actually a level of priority to this. The location-based evolutions take top priority, as the game assumes that's why you're leveling up your Eevee in that place in the first place. The second priority would be Sylveon, as it assumes that that's the reason that you have a Fairy-type move on your Eevee. The third would be the time-based evolutions, as there's no other conditions besides time to give it a high priority. Now obviously with Glaceon and Leafeon being stone evolutions, this doesn't matter too much, but still in Generation 8 onwards, if your Eevee has a Fairy-type move and a high Friendship, then irrespective of the time of day, your Eevee will evolve into Sylveon, so that's the only priority in evolution now. The Eevee line has the most number of stone evolutions of any family, that being with 5 different stones. In the 2018 art book Eevees, Motofumi Fujiwara revealed that the idea for Eevee came from Satoshi Toji's request to have a Pokemon that evolves into multiple types. Fujiwara himself designed Eevee as a blank state for its varied evolutions. As such, while Eevee has traits of foxes, dogs, and cats, it's not based on any specific animal. Fujiwara also envisioned Eevee as a creature that could exist in people's memories, namely vague memories of seeing a cat or dog-like creature that players may have experienced in their childhood. In Gen 3 and prior, every type was considered either physical or special, as all of the moves of that type only hit on the physical or special side before the physical special split in Generation 4. And all of the evolution typings prior to Sylveon are special types. The only special move type that was not included is the Dragon type, and I'm sure if Fairy was included, then it would also be a special typing. Eevee has more signature moves than any other Pokemon, with a total of 11, all thanks to Let's Go Eevee. Eevee is the only pre-existing Pokemon to receive a gender difference after Generation 4. Eevee's English name is a palindrome. Its English name also only contains 2 unique characters, E and V, less than any other Pokemon's English name. Eevee, Jolteon, and Flareon were designed by Motofumi Fujiwara. Vaporeon, Espeon, Umbreon, Leafeon, Glaceon, and Sylveon were designed by Atsuko Nishida. Eevee is the only Pokemon that evolves with a Leaf Stone that is not a Grass type, as well as the only one to evolve by a Water Stone that's not a Water type. Nowadays, Nosepass evolves into Probopass with the Thunderstone, and Capsicate evolves into Scovillain using the Fire Stone. But prior to Legends Arceus, Eevee was the only Pokemon to evolve with these 4 stones and not have the same type. 4 of Eevee's evolved forms evolved through abnormal means in the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series. For Espeon and Umbreon, it's by using the Sun Ribbon or Lunar Ribbon with at least 1 star of IQ. And for Leafeon and Glaceon, it's by using the Mossy Rock or a Frozen Rock, which I know that seems normal, but for this series, it's pretty unique. In Pokemon Ranger, all of Eevee's evolved forms up to the 3rd generation can be captured. However, Eevee is completely unobtainable. This was changed in Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia. The Eevee line is the only evolutionary line where all the members don't share any types. Prior to Generation 2 with Pokemon breeding, obtaining all 4 Pokemon in the evolutionary line required playing 4 different saved versions of Generation 1 games and getting to as far as Celadon City, or repeatedly winning the Gift Eevee from defeating the Elite Four and Champion in Pokemon Stadium. Eevee is the only member of this line to have an exclusive Z-move and Z-Crystal, and also has a Gigantamax form. Jolteon is the only member of this line without an obvious tail. However, in the Electric Tail Pikachu manga, it is shown to have a stubby tail under its spikes. I don't think it's actually canon, but it's there. All of Penny's Pokemon are Eeveelutions, making her the only notable trainer in the games to use a full team of Eeveelutions. All of the Eeveelutions have a base stat total of 525. Umbreon is the only evolution not to have more than 65 base attack and special attack. Leafeon is the only evolution whose base stat and special defense is lower than 95. Not a single evolution has HP or special defense as its lowest base stat. Gary's Eevee and it being used to battle Pikachu during the first battle between Ash and Gary are references to Blue's Eevee and the first rival battle between it and the player's Pikachu in Pokemon Yellow. In the English dub of Power Play, Gary told Umbreon to use Agility, a move it's unable to legitimately learn. In the Japanese version, he just told to use its footwork to dodge an attack. Gary owning an Umbreon is most likely a reference and a parallel to Pokemon Gold and Silver and Crystal, where Red owns an Espeon, so Gary gets to own the other evolution that Eevee could evolve into that was introduced in Generation 2. Despite debuting at the end of the Orange Island saga as an Eevee, Umbreon was not shown to be damaged by an attack until the battle with Saturn's Toxicroak 501 episodes later. It was also never defeated in battle on screen until battling in the Freezing Raid 1071 episodes after Umbreon's debut. Speaking of debut, Gary's Umbreon was the first time Umbreon appeared in the anime in the episode Trouble's Brewing, which is the 171st episode of the anime. Of all the main characters' Pokemon that debuted as eggs, May's Eevee took the longest to hatch at 7 episodes. May's Glaceon is the first Pokemon belonging to a main character that's evolved by being in a certain location, in this case near an ice rock. Glaceon is the first Pokemon belonging to one of Ash's friends to use a Ghost-type move. It's also the first Ice-type Pokemon to belong to any one of Ash's friends. Out of all the different Pokemon belonging to Ash's friends, May's Glaceon has used the most different type of moves, with 6 different types being used. Glaceon is the only Pokemon belonging to May to appear in Pokemon Journeys. Sakura's Espeon shares a voice actress with one of Sakura's sisters in both Japanese and English, Satsuki in Japanese and Sumomo in English. Espeon is the only one of the Kimono sisters Pokemon that isn't captured in an Apricot Ball. In the English dub of Espeon Not Included, it was implied by Ash that Espeon is a male by calling it him at one point, but we all know how the English dub be with these things. In Pokemon Go, a naming trick used to evolve Eevee into Espeon involves the name Sakura. This is obviously a reference to the anime, but there's a few more. Tamo for Umbreon, Rainer for Vaporeon, Sparky for Jolteon, Pyro for Flareon, and these 5 are all anime characters, Rhea for Glaceon, Linnea for Leafeon, and Kira for Sylveon. All of these naming methods only works once per evolution. Eevee, Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon all debuted in the anime in the 40th episode, The Battling Eevee Brothers, with again the brothers Rainer, Sparky, and Pyro owning the 3 Kanto evolutions, and Mikey owning Eevee. Mikey's hair also resembles the fluffy part of Eevee's neck fur that looks like a collar. See, they were always meant to be partners. Sakura's Espeon was the first time Espeon debuted in the anime, that being the 226th episode of the anime, Espeon Not Included. In that same episode, the 4 older sisters all use fans that mask the elements of their respective evolution. In the Pokemon Adventures manga, in the Heart Gold and Soul Silver chapters, the Kimono girls end up adding Leafeon and Glaceon to their team, marking the only time in any medium where we see the Kimono girls with these evolutions. In Pokemon Evolutions, the Kimono girls wear apricot Pokeballs as decorations in their hair that match the design of their respective evolution. Naoko wears a Love Ball for Espeon, Zuki wears a Moon Ball for Umbreon, Sayo wears a Fastball for Jolteon, Miki wears a Level Ball for Flareon, and Kuni wears a Lure Ball for Vaporeon. Serena's Sylveon capture was first teased in the ending theme, Roaring All-Stars. Sylveon's captures in Eevee marks the first time one of Ash's friends acquired a species of Pokemon that a previous traveling companion also had. This, of course, being May's Eevee. Sylveon was the first pure fairy-type Pokemon to be owned by a main character. Lana's Eevee Sandy wears a hairstyle similar to the ones that can be given to the partner Pikachu and Eevee in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. Sandy is the first Pokemon in the animated series to be kept in a dive ball. Its capture also marks the longest duration between one of Ash's friends' debut and the first on-screen capture, taking 99 episodes. Sandy is the only one of his species belonging to main character that hasn't evolved, because apparently Chloe doesn't count as a main character. I'm not making this up. Sandy shares his Japanese and English name with Sandy from Magical Pokemon Journey. Chloe's Eevee is the first female of her species with a visible gender difference in the animated series. Her Eevee also can't evolve, going back to the fact about Lana's Eevee being the only one who hasn't evolved. You could argue that Chloe is a main character and that her Eevee doesn't count here because it can't evolve, but anyways, her Eevee's inability to evolve is likely a reference to Pokemon Let's Go Eevee's partner Pokemon, as the Eevee from there wouldn't evolve either. Gladian's Umbreon is the first Pokemon in the anime to be kept in a heal ball. I wonder how a heal ball heals a Pokemon. Maybe it just gets a good night's rest in there. But you know who else can get a good night's rest? You, with the help of today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. Why do I got so much energy? Because I'm meant to sleep. We all know how important a good night's sleep is, but many of us don't actually get it, which is why Manta Sleep is here to save the day. Manta Sleep has designed a series of the most comfortable sleep masks for you to choose from and pick as if you're picking an evolution, based on your own needs and requirements, of course. The Silk Mask if you need something that's gentle on the skin, the Pro Sleep Mask for the unmatched side sleeping, the Sound Sleep Mask for the razor-thin Bluetooth earphones, and a few others. They got it all. And all of these sleep masks have a true 100% blackout experience, and with their eye cups, there's no pressure on your eyes or eyelids either. When I wore them, it honestly felt more dark than it would when I closed my eyes. And I didn't even notice my friend when we were recording this bit. And honestly, while I do get my sleep, I am a light sleeper where a small bit of light or noise will wake me up. But with the Manta Sound Sleep Mask, there's no room for disturbances. And that's not all. They currently have a Valentine's Day offer going on where if you buy any mask, you can get 50% off any mask accessory. Be sure to check them out in the link down below in the comments or the description and use code HYBRID to receive 10% off your Manta order. Thank you to Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's video. Gladian's Umbreon is the first member of its species to use a Dark-type move in the anime. Ursula owns a Vaporeon and Flareon, which she literally evolved on screen for a contest performance. Which, hey, that's a crazy power play. To this day, I still have no idea how she prepped for that, but whatever. These two Eevee were surprisingly the first Eevees to evolve on screen. Yeah, it took till Gen 4 to see Eevee evolve. Cynthia's Glaceon is the first and only evolution to be owned and used by a champion in the animated series. In the anime, Annabelle's Espeon is her favorite Pokemon. Valerie's Sylveon actually isn't the debut of Sylveon in the anime. Sylveon debuted in the 26th Pikachu short, Eevee and Friends, which premiered shortly after the 16th movie. Despite Vulpix not having a playable sync pair with Jolteon in Masters EX, he does own a Jolteon in the anime, which is the first evolution to be used by and owned by a gym leader in the anime. He also owns in the games in Platinum and has rematch teams in every game from there. Dawn has an interesting tie-in with the evolutions because, despite not owning one, she knows many people who do. In terms of her rivals, we've already mentioned how May, Zoe, and Ursula own 4 of the evolutions, and Chloe obviously owns Eevee. Cynthia also owns a Glaceon on top of this, and she's seen Vulpix use Jolteon against Ash. But on top of this, her mother Joanna actually owns an Umbreon, and it's actually been seen to help Donna with their training. I'm just saying, it would have been cool for her to own an Espeon. Virgil's Vaporeon used Bubble Beam, a move that it can only learn via TM11 in Generation 1. The gender ratio in Virgil's team is the same gender ratio of Eevee and its evolved forms in the games, with only one of 8 Eevees being female. Virgil actually also appeared in Pokemon Black 2 and White 2's World Tournament as a trainer with Eevee, Umbreon, and Espeon. Looks like one championship wasn't enough for this guy. The Global Link Dream World promotion was the first chance you could get the hidden abilities of the Eeveelutions. It was held sometime throughout 2011, it just depended on what region you were in. But for most regions like the English ones, you could only obtain one hidden ability evolution at this time. The Eeveelutions were given out in many events throughout the years. One of them was the Pokemon Center birthday Pokemon event. All the Eeveelutions and Pikachu were distributed at level 10 on a player's birthday month in Japan from the dates of October 12, 2013 to December 31st, 2016. This was in the Gen 6 games, but you had to show proof of your birthday to obtain them. In Pokemon Origins, Red is seen using a Jolteon on his Hall of Fame team. In the manga, V the Espeon is Red's only known Generation 2 Pokemon, just like his game counterpart Espeon is. If Pokemon Stadium 2 is excluded, of course, but V wasn't always an Espeon, as V is the only Pokemon Adventures to go through de-evolution. It didn't just de-evolve as an Espeon, but rather as an Eevee, because V, being a Team Rocket experiment, had the unique capability to evolve into the original 3 evolutions and shift back at will. So it could not only de-evolve, but it could transform into the other evolutions per the need. Red eventually made it evolve into Espeon fully, so it didn't need to go through this process anymore. The location that Red met V is likely a reference to the Eevee that can be obtained in Celadon City in the Kanto-based games, as he got it during the Celadon City part of the manga. In terms of other Eevee uses in Pokemon Adventures, Karen owned an Eevee which evolved into Umbreon, Y got an Eevee named Vivi which evolved into Sylveon, go figure. While not owned by anyone, Gigantamax Eevee did appear in the manga when Pokemon were suddenly Gigantamaxing out of nowhere. Just like the games, Greta also owns an Umbreon, Dexia obviously owns the Espeon here, and Sina owns a Glaceon. There are a lot more Eevees in the manga though. For example, in the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Adventure manga, the counterpart to Dawn, Mitsumi, owns an Eevee, a Glaceon, a Leafeon, and an Espeon. She's not an evolution user either. She has a team of other Pokemon too. There's a comedy manga called Pokemon, Yeah I Got Pokemon, that I've never heard of, where this character named Rin has an Eevee, and I'm not going to pretend like I know anything else. In the manga Pokemon Magical Journey, the rival character Coconut had an Eevee. This Eevee eventually meets Lou the Eevee, and Coconut's Eevee had a crush on it, and eventually the two become a couple. Another Pokemon love story to cover. On the bright side, Coconut's Eevee is apparently smarter than most Eevee, being as smart as a kindergartner and it knows basic math? Yeah, don't ask me what this manga is about either, I have no clue. There's a Vaporeon in this manga too that apparently falls in love with the Machamp, and the Machamp falls in love back, and guess what? They go on a date together? Okay, seriously, I don't know what this manga is about, and it obviously came out way before the cursed meme, but my god, man. It's crazy how this aged, because this literally adds fuel to the fire with the whole Vaporeon breeding thing. If I use it on a thumbnail, you know why, but despite that, I really want to get rid of the association to Vaporeon. There's a Glaceon that's owned by Yu Shirogane in another manga that I've never heard of called Pocket Master Platinum, aimed to be Battle King. Don't know what it is, but the art looks crazy. Then we had a Leafeon owned by Nozuna in Phantom Thief Pokemon 7, but something tells me it's not related to Persona.
Looking cool, Joker!
Umbreon appeared once again under Karen's ownership in Pocket Monsters HGSS Joe's Big Adventure, which I do know what this one was. It's largely a cool manga of a Totodile solo run. Another Johto manga that I know of is the manga Pokemon Gold and Silver Golden Boys, where Bill owns both Umbreon and Espeon here. You know who else owns both an Umbreon and Espeon? Wes, and he does so in the Pokemon manga as well. Not just one manga, but two of them. There are two different manga for Pokemon Coliseum. One of them is called Pokemon Coliseum Snatchers, and the other one is called Pokemon Coliseum Snatcher Leo. I'm not sure what the difference is, as in both manga, they're created by the same author in different magazines, and Wes does catch different Pokemon in them, so it is different, but it's the same, I think. But hey, at least his starters of Espeon and Umbreon are still the same. There are some other manga series that Eevee and some of the other Eeveelutions appear in, but it doesn't look like anyone owns a particular Eevee or Eeveelution here. But some of the series are Pokemon Pocket Monster, Pokemon Zensho, and Pokemon Horizon? Oh, sorry, wrong Horizon. Eevee also appeared in Pokemon Nobugana's Ambition Ronse Color Picture Scroll. Long name I know, but it's basically the manga adaptation of Pokemon Conquest, as the main Pokemon of both the hero and heroine is Eevee, cause in Pokemon Conquest, Eevee is the starter Pokemon of those games. The Espeon and Umbreon given in Pokemon Coliseum will always both be male, with Umbreon at level 26 and Espeon at level 25. This is in order to prevent breeding of the two for more Eevees. Yeah, I know, they really thought of everything to make it hard to get Eeveelutions in Generation 3. If someone pre-ordered Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness way back, they could have received a limited edition GameCube skin featuring Shadow Lugia, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, Michael the player character, and Eevee. Crazy to think that this is the first game that Eevee was a playable starter. Another game which Eevee was a playable starter was in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue, where you basically only get an Eevee if you pick it as your starter Pokemon. If you don't pick it as a starter, then you can only get it at the Joyous Tower, a post-game dungeon that basically unlocks and is an area to get Chansey and the other starter Pokemon once you've done pretty much everything else in the game. All Pokemon used by the Eevee users in the Alola know Last Resort. Speaking of which, the Eevee users are a set of 8, technically 9 trainers scattered across the Alola that you can only face after defeating the champion. All of these users only have one Pokemon, that being each of the Eeveelutions. And the final guy who just gets to use Eevee was the one who set you off in this challenge in the first place, because he says that he tried to beat the challenge when he was younger, but he couldn't, so he basically makes you live out his dream. And once you do, you face him, and once you beat him, he gives you the EVMZ. Would have been cool if it was accessible during the main game if you ask me, but oh well. All of Penny's Eeveelutions use the move Baby Doll Eyes and Quick Attack. Okay, Quick Attack I understand, but Baby Doll Eyes? Come on now. While Glaceon and Espeon are absent from Penny's arsenal, Eevee is not, as in the Blueberry Academy during the third unique interaction with her in the League Club Room, she will trade an Eevee to the player character. This one doesn't know Quick Attack or Baby Doll Eyes. However, Baby Doll Eyes is most likely not to influence the Eevee evolving into Sylveon, but it does have Curse. What is she trying to tell us? Pokemon Yellow marks the first time that you're able to get more than one starter Pokemon without trading, or in this case, all of the starter Pokemon. By default, you get Pikachu and the rival gets Eevee of course, but you can also get Eevee from Celadon, meaning you have access to both and all starter Pokemon in this game. This has happened in other games like X and Y in getting an egg of one of the starters you missed, or Legends Arceus where you can catch all the starters in the post game, but it first happened in Yellow. Speaking of Pokemon Yellow, do you know what determines the evolution that the rival Eevee evolves into? It's the win rate of the first 2 battles against the rival. If you lose to the rival in the first fight, that's the lab fight, Eevee will always evolve into Vaporeon, giving Pikachu the edge for the rest of the game. If the player beats the rival in the lab fight and then loses or skips the Route 22 fight, then Eevee evolves into Flareon for a neutral matchup. If the player beats the rival in both these fights, then Eevee evolves into Jolteon for the hardest matchup. And you know what else is crazy? Pikachu and Eevee are the starter Pokemon of Pokemon Yellow when they're the only 2 Pokemon at this point in time that evolve via the Thunderstone. Crazy. Outside of Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and Black and White, you can catch or obtain an Eevee in every single main series Pokemon game. But in Black and White's defense, you can't catch a lot of older Pokemon, and Black 2 and White 2 make it so that you can get Eevee early anyways. So literally, Gen 3 is the only gen that made it difficult to get this mon. You can even catch an Eevee in Let's Go Pikachu. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the Eeveelutions came equipped with moves that they could not learn via level up when they appeared as a Wild Terra Pokemon. They could learn these moves through other methods however, but it's still pretty cool to see them with moves that they don't normally get through level up. For Vaporeon, these moves were Curse, Ice Beam, Surf, and Wish. For Jolteon, these moves were Fake Tears, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, and Yawn. Flareon's got 4 moves, but only 2 of these are unique, being Curse and Double Kick. Same goes for Espeon with Calm Mind, Shadow Ball, but honestly, that's a crazy setup. Umbreon with 3 has Curse, Foul Play, and Yawn. Leafeon has another 3, Aerial Ace, Wish, and Yawn. Matching them, Glaceon has 3 in Curse, Calm Mind, and Ice Beam. And with the final 3, Sylveon has Calm Mind, Yawn, and Shadow Ball. A lot of the moves are similar for sure, but a lot of them are Eeveelution staples. There are 4 Pokemon moves that Eevee can't learn normally that it can use in the TCG. Astonish from Lieutenant Surge's Eevee in Gym Challenge, and also Scratch from the same card. Bounce from the Eevee and Rising Rivals, and Lunge in a bunch of Eevee cards before that move even became a move. Flareon has 2 of these moves, Fiery Dance from the Flareon and EX Unseen Forces, but again, that's a Gen 3 card, and Fiery Dance is a Gen 5 move, and then Fury Swipes from the Flareon promo card. Espeon has a few interesting ones, the Espeon from Rising Rivals could learn Hypnosis, and honestly, I feel like Espeon should be able to learn Hypnosis. And then that same Espeon, as well as the Sabrina's Espeon card, could learn Psywave, which it's not a great move, but I think Espeon should be able to learn it for sure. When it comes to TCG, since the debut of Prismatic Evolutions, because yes, Prismatic Evolutions is out by the time I'm recording this bit, Eevee has been featured on 69 different cards. Vaporeon has been featured on 29 different cards, Jolteon has been featured on 32 different cards, Flareon has been featured on 31 different cards, Espeon has been featured on 27 different cards, Umbreon has been featured on 26 different cards, Leafeon has been featured on 20 different cards, Glaceon has been featured on 19 different cards, and Sylveon has been featured on 16 different cards, which is the least, but honestly, for how late it came out, it's not too far behind Glaceon and Leafeon. Eevee's debut in the TCG was a Jungle set alongside Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon, Jungle being the second set of the Pokemon TCG. Espeon debuted in the TCG in the Neo Discovery set alongside Umbreon, Neo Discovery being the 9th overall set in English. Leafeon debuted in TCG in the Majestic Dawn set alongside Glaceon, with Majestic Dawn being the 34th TCG set in English. And Sylveon made its TCG debut through one of the X and Y Black Star promos, pretty much after the 57th set release. The first 5 Eeveelutions have all had Gold Star prints in the TCG. These are incredibly rare cards that were made in the EX era or the Gen 3 era of the trading card game that had the Pokemon appear in their shiny form, and for the Eeveelutions, these are the first times that they've appeared as a shiny Pokemon in the trading card game, making them some of the most expensive cards in all of Pokemon. Let's go over how expensive they really are. As of the time of recording this video, the Special Art Eevee EX from Prismatic Evolutions is the most expensive Eevee card at $200 raw, but these prices are going to fluctuate heavy, so I'm going to go with the Reverse Holo Eevee that's also $200 raw and nearly $2,000 at a PSA 10 from Legendary Collection. The most expensive Leafeon card is the Prismatic Evolution Special Art Leafeon at $400 raw, but I'm giving it to the Special Art VMAX from Evolving Skies, going for $325 raw and $590 at a PSA 10. Special Art Glaceon from Prismatic is second here at $301, whereas the Special Art VMAX is $303, and at a PSA 10, it's $543. Sylveon recently has been super expensive, but nothing in comparison to the first 5 Eeveelutions. The Special Art Sylveon in Prismatic is the highest at $553 raw, but the Special Art VMAX is $283 raw and $590 in a PSA 10. While Prismatic Special Art Flareon is $253 raw, the Flareon Gold Star card is $258 raw, and in a PSA 10, this thing is $2,500. Prismatic Special Art Jolteon is only $243 and is the 3rd highest Jolteon, so this won't see the time of day anytime soon. But Gold Star Jolteon is at the top, being $760 raw and $2,130 as a PSA 10. While Prismatic Special Art Vaporeon is $304 raw, Gold Star Vaporeon is $618, while the PSA 10 version is a whopping $3,350. Now the Kanto Gold Stars are way easier to get than the Johto Gold Stars, and you're gonna see that in the price. If you look up the most expensive Espeon card, it's gonna be this Espeon EX at $218 raw and $4,400 in a PSA 10. The Prismatic Special Art Espeon is around $358 right now, so it could be higher, but for some reason, these websites don't count the Pop Series 5 Gold Star Espeon, probably because it's near impossible to get, but if you did, it goes for $2,000 raw and a whopping $9,000 in a PSA 10. And the granddaddy of them all, Umbreon. The Prismatic Special Art Umbreon, which is known as Sunbreon, is currently $1,560 raw. Evolving Skies Special Art Moonbreon is $1,500 raw and $3,000 at a PSA 10. But do you want to know what's the king? As a raw card, Gold Star Umbreon is $2,230. But if you grade it as a PSA 10, it's valued nearly 10x's as it's a whopping $21,000 card. That is absolutely ridiculous. That kind of money can change a person's life. Toning things down a bit, Eevee had a figure come out in the Pokemon trading figure game. It only had one set called Next Quest because the trading figure game got cancelled, but before it got cancelled, Eevee was one of the few Pokemon to actually have a figure. Speaking of being a figure, in Pokemon Smash Bros. Melee, Eevee was a trophy. Glaceon and Leafeon also came up in a combined trophy in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which surprisingly is the first appearance of the Eeveelutions here. And in Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U, boy, those feel like they came forever ago. Eevee appears as a Pokeball Pokemon that uses Takedown to attack opponents, but it also appears as a trophy in both versions of the game. Sylveon is also featured as a trophy here in 3DS and Wii U titles, and in Smash Bros. Ultimate, Eevee is once again a Pokeball Pokemon doing the same thing that it did last time, and since trophies are removed, it comes in the form of two spirits, both regular Eevee and partner Eevee. Surprisingly though, Eevee never made an appearance in the original Smash Bros. Or in Brawl. Eevee made an appearance in the Detective Pikachu game where it was under ownership of some guy named Howard Clifford. It later evolved into Flareon. Eevee makes an appearance in Pokemon Snap in the beach area, but its evolutions don't make an appearance at all. However, in New Pokemon Snap, Eevee and each one of its evolutions make an appearance in various different locations in the game. For some reason, Eevee was no longer a playable character in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Time and Darkness, and it became a Pokemon that you can only obtain in a post-game dungeon, as well as a secret Wondermill mission. However, in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, Eevee became a playable and potential partner Pokemon again. Many people don't know this, but on the WiiWare, there were 3 exclusive Japanese Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, which were all basically the same game, but with 3 different titles. One title was water-based, one was electric-based, and one was fire-based. And these titles determined the starters that you could choose from. Amongst the crowd, Eevee was the starter that was exclusive to the fire-themed game, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Keep Going, Blazing Squad Adventure. Trust me, the games aren't that good. In Pokemon Conquest, the perfect links for both the hero and heroine are Eevee and its evolutions, as Eevee is again their starter Pokemon in this game. The only Pokemon outside this group that these characters can get a perfect link at rank 3 is Arceus. In Pokemon Unite, 5 of the Eeveelutions are playable characters, with Sylveon being the first one released on October 6, 2021. It currently has 7 skins in total. It has a theater style skin, which was a skin from the 4th season's Premium Battle Pass. It also has its Elegant Style skin, which might as well be a Premium Battle Pass skin, but it was through an event unlock. It might as well be one of a kind. Espeon was the second one released, that being on May 16, 2022. It currently has 8 skins in total. It currently has 2 premium skins, one of which is its Performer style skin, which was obtained from the Battle Pass Season 14. But it also has its Pokebuki style skin, which you just gotta drop a lot of money for. Umbreon was the 3rd evolution that became playable on May 25, 2023. Umbreon currently has 4 different skins. It also currently has 1 premium Battle Pass skin, which is its Graceful style skin, which was there for the 23rd season's Battle Pass. Leafeon was the 4th evolution that became available to play as on June 8, 2023. Leafeon currently only has 2 skins in total. You're about to see favoritism at play in a moment. It got a premium skin known as the Wonder Cell skin, which you just need lots of money for. And Glaceon was the 5th and currently final evolution that became available to play as shortly after Leafeon on July 21st, 2023. And Glaceon has a whopping 9 different skins. Glaceon also has a premium skin known as the Graceful style skin, which again, you just gotta drop money to get. You may be asking why Glaceon and Espeon have so many skins alongside Sylveon, when Umbreon and Leafeon don't have much. And that's because Glaceon is an attacker, Espeon is also an attacker, and Sylveon is also an attacker. See the pattern? Whereas Umbreon is a defender and Leafeon is a speedster. Attackers and all-rounders are the most played characters, so they get the most skins. And oh yeah, there's no evolution yet that serves as an all-rounder or a supporter. Hopefully, if and when the Kanto evolutions join, they can fill this role. When playing as the evolutions in Pokemon Unite, you start off as Eevee, as most Pokemon do start off in their pre-evolved stage. And since Eevee doesn't indicate which evolution you choose, there's a symbol next to Eevee's level to indicate which evolution you will evolve into. In Pokemon Go, Eevee has 7 different costumes. Umbreon, Espeon, and Glaceon have 5 different costumes, and the rest all have 4 different costumes. Between all of the evolutions, Vaporeon is the one that weighs the most. This fact is only here this late because somehow I forgot to include it earlier. But it's okay because I still have to talk about how in 2021, Vaporeon became Japan's national mascot for Water Day, which is August 1st, making it Japan's official water ambassador. Normally, Eevee has a gender difference of 7 males to every 1 female. However, in Let's Go, the partner Eevee seems to have a 1-to-1 gender ratio to match partner Pikachu. Before the heart-shaped tail was implemented for all Eevee in Generation 8, it was first implemented exclusively for the female partner Eevee. The partner Eevee also has a larger model than its regular counterpart, and its coat is also a lighter shade of brown compared to its regular counterpart, and it has purple irises rather than brown. Earlier I had mentioned how Eevee had 11 signature moves, and while that is true, the partner Eevee from Let's Go specifically is the Pokemon that's capable of learning most amount of signature moves, that being 9 of them. Eevee's unique Z move, Extreme Evo Boost, is the only Z move that's a status move, and because it plays off of Last Resort, it's the only Z move category that differs from its base move category. The other name used to describe the evolutions that isn't evolutions is Eevee. It was first introduced in Generation 2 as it was the Japanese name for what we now know as the Eon male. As we said earlier, why Sylveon also had this nickname. Eevee Volley was also one of the names of the moves of the partner Eevee in Let's Go. In Sword and Shield's Battle Tower, Pokekid Alex, who's dressed as an Eevee, mentions her Eevee power. And in both Pokemon Scarlet and Violet as well as Pokemon Masters EX, Penny uses the term Eevees to refer to her team of 6 evolutions, making this the other official term for the line that we were talking about earlier. And finally, it has been officially announced that 2025 is the year of Eevee. It's a good thing I was lazy to script this video because it was supposed to come out in December of 2024. Now that's what I call timing.